Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to give a full rundown of the Kill Team content in White Dwarf 478, now that I have my grubby little hands on my subscriber copy. I know that you're going to be most interested in the enhanced terrain rules. Hang on for those. They're at the end of the video. I'm going to give a full rundown of everything else that comes in the magazine for Kill Team first of all. So, starting with the cards, we do get the cards for the Warp Coven and the Void Dance Troupe included in this issue, 3 cards for each. So that means that with the exception of the Hunterclade, the Wormblade, the Phobos and the Bloodied, everyone else in the game, all the other bespoke teams, have these cute little cards available to them, which is good. I could see the other cards coming out in future White Dwarfs, 2 teams at a time, until they kind of catch up with themselves. I can't see them randomly forgetting about those 4 teams the rest of the time. Just a reminder that these kind of do need to be sleeved because they have these little chads here where they've been punched out of the paper, and they will let you know which cards are your bespoke team's unique cards if you have them shuffled into a deck. So yeah, you probably need to sleeve them. Once they're sleeved though, they're really, really nice, and it's really nice to have the cards. Yes, you could make them yourselves if you're going to sleeve them anyway. You could print them out, but it's a nice thing for them to add in. Moving on, we got the campaign. So there's a big kind of Tale of 4 Gamers style campaign article about Kill Team. They have 5 members of the White Dwarf staff. They go in Warp Coven, Harlequins, Tau Pathfinders, Vet Guard and Commandos. In this article, you've got about 2 pages on each of the 5 participants in the campaign. A lot of it is talking about how they built up their team, including the painting and the modelling stuff, with actually relatively little focus on the games that they played, so that will appeal to some people and not to others. There's a lot of talk about how they built up their roster as well. I've included 1 page of the Vet Guard team because the guy used the Cadian miniatures instead of the Krieg, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was a cool little team, so I thought I'd share that bit with you. Generally speaking, when it comes to the non-rules content in White Dwarf, I'm not going to show you scans of every single page because I think that's taking the mickey a little bit from Games Workshop. I feel like if you want the fun entertainment content from the White Dwarf magazine, you should probably go and buy the magazine. Whereas I feel like the rules content needs to be shared far and wide for the health of the game. That's my take. Yours may vary. But yeah, it's a fun little campaign. Article takes up quite a lot of pages, and there's quite a lot of focus on how to build up a campaign roster, which is, I know, something not a lot of people have tried. So hopefully that is of interest to you. It's certainly going to be of interest to me over the next couple of days as I read and fully digest that part of the article. We've also got fiction. So there are 4 pages of Kill Team flavoured fiction. This particular story is Krieg versus the Bloodied. It seems pretty good, although I'm not really a person to do literary criticism. I am an uncritical consumer of Games Workshop fiction. I distinctly remember when we were at university, there was one of those memes going around on Facebook or wherever it was, where it was like, pick up the book to your left and go to page 73 and write in sentence 7 or whatever it was. And everyone was coming up with these highfalutin things from these fancy books they were reading. And mine was like, the Gene Stealers boiled up through the deck plate, because the book immediately to my left was like the novelisation of Space Hulk or something. So, you know, I like GW fiction. I don't think it's good in a literary sense, but then I don't really know what is good in a literary sense. I like it because it's the setting I'm familiar with and things happening in that setting that bring me joy. So if you like GW fiction, there's 4 pages out for you in White Dwarf with a Kill Team flavour. Right, Operation Briefing. So we've got another article by Elliot Hamer, who's the lead dev for Kill Team. He effectively goes through all of the bespoke teams and gives you a favourite operative from each team. And then at the end of the article, he crowns his favourite operative for the first year of Kill Team, and he's chosen the Commando Grot. I've just shown a little snippet of the end of the article there. What I think is interesting about this article from a kind of wider meta point of view, obviously it's a really interesting article. Go and buy the magazine and give it a read if that's what you'd like to do. What I find interesting from a meta perspective in this article is that they use the language of Year 1. Year 1 is all the way through. This is Kill Team Year 1, Kill Team Year 1. They clearly intend to support this for a year 2, a year 3, and so on. Also, there's not even a mention of the compendium teams. There's no top operative of the compendium teams, and it's further evidence, if it were needed, that Games Workshop seems to be abandoning the compendium teams in favour of the bespoke teams. Okay, now we will get on to the main event. You've patiently sat through. I just wanted to emphasise the point that there's lots of kill team content in this White Dwarf. So, creating a kill zone. So now I have provided the full pages. I have the magazine in hand. Actually, I didn't scan these pages. Someone else had already scanned them in and posted them on a Discord. So I thought, why reinvent the wheel? But have scanned in, looked through my copy and verified that there's nothing missing and they're in the right order. So that's good. Right, let's read through this. So, creating a kill zone. Kill team games are fought in kill zones, dramatic and awe-inspiring battlefields packed with all manner of things to climb up, run along, hide behind, or detonate. This article provides rules and inspiration for creating your very own immersive kill zone. The war zones and battlefields of the 41st millennium are treacherous places at the best of times, sectors, cities, entire planets reduced to little more than rubble and ruination by cataclysmic battles. Once proud megastructures are now bombed-out shells. Industrial complexes have been turned into wastelands of wrecked factories and twisted machinery. Fortifications are left derelict, pipes and fuel lines are ruptured, and vital supplies are left forgotten amidst the destruction. Shrines, statues, and other such holy places are defiled, pulled down, and ransacked. My attempt to read this prose with a little bit of flair and drama, while you probably can tell, the reason there's no camera on this video is that I'm horrendously unwell as I'm recording this. So I'm all bunged up, and I've got a massive headache, and I'm trying to get through it, but bear with me. Yet still these places are fought over, for every scrap of fuel, every holy relic, and every inch of ground is valuable to one side or the other in the wider theatre of war. It's on these battlefields, these kill zones, that kill teams truly excel, for they can move through the wreckage of war unseen and undetected to carry out missions that far larger armies would not be able to achieve, but such landscapes are not without their dangers. Okay, bit of fluff. Let's see what we've actually got here. The Kill Zone Register. Over the next 11 pages, you'll find a host of useful and inspiring rules to help you create your very own kill zone, something that several members of the White Dwarf team are already doing. And indeed, in that campaign article, there was a fair bit of content about them making their own terrain while they were going along and making kind of quite narrative and quite interesting looking terrain. The rules presented here are shown with examples, but they can be applied to numerous kits from the Warhammer 40,000 scenery range. For example, part of a plasma conduit are considered dangerous. You could apply it to any bit of scenery, like the impressive claw-limbed servo skull on the Galvanic Magnavent kit, or perhaps the sewer vent with the tentacles sprouting out of it in the Necromunda Barricades and Objectives set. A Noctilith crown could be just as inspiring as an Adeptus Sororitas battle sector, or just as strategic as a Necron Star Stelly. Star Stelly? Any Necron players in the chat? Star Stelly? Star Stell? Star Stell. Or both inspiring and strategic at the same time. Now all that remains is to build your kill zone complete with the hazards, pitfalls and hidey holes you'd expect to find on a war-ravaged world. So what are you waiting for? Get gluing. Okay. So they're providing us with a kind of sandbox of rules, and we're being encouraged to build our own mad creations and apply the rules to them as we see fit, which is great. It's also the opposite of how a lot of people interact with terrain in Kill Team, where it's become the most kind of chin-stroking and scientific part of the entire thing. Indeed, I think many of the more competitive Discords have entire channels that are just about kind of chin-stroking about terrain, so it's going to be really interesting to see how these two approaches kind of smash into each other, if they do at all. But let's go through it. So, Killzone Register. So we're up here now, folks. Killzone Register. Whether you're looking to create kill zones using your existing terrain collection or begin a hobby project to build thematic and customized kill zones, a Killzone Register provides a selection of terrain traits for you to use, with guidance and examples of their application shown in italics, used in conjunction with the traits in the core book: heavy, light, insignificant, traversable, and vantage point. These traits are flexible in their application, intended to be applied as you wish, so only use when you feel it's suitable for your customized kill zone. For example, not all exposed plasma coils need the dangerous traits, some may be inactive. Just make sure you decide all the traits before the battle. Make sure you discuss terrain before the battle. I'm going to say that a lot. Remember that a terrain feature may have multiple traits. For example, there's effective defensive position would have heavy, defendable, fortified, and gun emplacement traits. Also remember that kill team has a large degree of I hate this word. Specific. The property of being specific when applied to an object. A large degree of that. Traits are often applied to specific parts, but not to others, as shown in the diagram below. So we've got a diagram of one of the kind of off-the-shelf builds of the Sector Mechanicum stuff, showing us, I think, how we would all rule it, right? So this is heavy, this is traversable and light, this is a vantage point, that all seems fine by me. I'm assuming these ladders are scalable, I'll certainly run them that way. I wouldn't run this door as a door, because it doesn't go anywhere, so that would kind of be sad, right? If you went through the door and then you were just, I'm inside the silo, I can't do anything. Unless you wanted to have a little map, a little side map off to one side to fight in the silo, that'd be funny, but generally speaking, if I can't see the inside of something, I'm not going to call the door a door. Right, terrain traits. Let's have a look at these, and let's try and quickly handle. There's a lot of them, and I'm knackered, and my throat hurts, but let's try and talk about them. So some traits require an operative to control a part of a terrain feature. A friendly operative controls it while within 1 inch of it, and total APL characteristic of friendly operatives within 1 is of greater than enemy operatives within 1. Okay, fine, as a core rule, that makes perfect sense. Volatile. Each time a shooting attack is made against an operative within a specified distance of this part of the terrain feature, the ranged weapon gains the lethal 5-up special rule for the shooting attack. If it already has the lethal X special rule, improve X by 1 for the shooting attack, i.e. lethal 5-up becomes lethal 4-up. This trait is suitable for creating areas that are risky to be around when the enemy shoots. The specified distance must be clearly defined before the battle. This could be as small as 1 inch for things like a barrel, and as large as blue for things like Promethean machinery. I really like that rule, because you're going to be able to kind of get people to avoid certain areas of the table. It creates kind of negative cover, although you would potentially get the benefit of, I don't know whether you'd make them light and volatile, right, at the same time, so that you could get the retainer dice but also grant lethal, and that gets a bit mathsy. But I quite like the idea of terrain that is negative, that kind of creates an exclusion zone around the area of the board. I can get behind that. All the way through we're going to talk about these. Got to remember that these traits can be stacked, okay? Inaccessible. Operatives cannot be set up on the terrain feature. They cannot move over or through it unless they can fly. This trait is suitable for terrain that operatives will be unable to navigate over or through, such as a destroyed vehicle or wrecked building. It's also suitable for areas of the kill zone operatives cannot move across, such as chasms and lava flows. Important to have that in there, I think, but you'd have to use it quite sparingly because the board is really small. This is the rule for punishing vantage point, so it's really nice to see that printed there. I am assuming that these articles are going to get reprinted in some kind of annual, which means that the punishing vantage point rules can escape from within the... There's a lot of people out there that believe that punishing vantage point as a rule only applies to things like it's part of like a Chalnath rule set, so you have to be playing on the Chalnath board for it to have effect. I think punishing vantage point is effectively a core rule, and this kind of supports me in that. It's come out in this article, so I'm not going to reread the punishing vantage point rules. We know what they are. It does say it's particularly suitable for high vantage points, i.e. more than 2 circle tall, that offer a commanding position in the kill zone. So like the Sector Mechanicus, if you're using the platforms, if you're using the big platforms that are really tall, but you're also using the smaller, like the power plant platforms, maybe you'd give the really tall platforms punishing vantage point. For me, whether or not you want to use punishing vantage point basically depends on whether you want to have those 2 levels of vantage point within your game. I feel like if all your vantage points are really tall, you don't need to give them punishing vantage points. But if you want to differentiate between the 2 things, the 2 floors of a building, you would give the taller ones punishing vantage point for sure. Dents up here, I feel is like the most important trait in the article. Each time an opponent makes a shooting attack, if a cover line drawn to the intended target crosses more than one terrain feature with this trait, the intended target is obscured. This trait is suitable for abstractly increasing the size of certain terrain features to block line of sight. It's especially suitable in heavily wooded kill zones where cover lines would cross multiple trees. Note it applies to the whole terrain feature, so in the image on the left, the parts that extend out from the tree have this trait too. The terrain feature will effectively simulate the feeling of a dense wooded area. That's really great because if you play in a local game store or if you're playing with somebody who doesn't have a terrain collection that they've specifically put together for Kill Team, the chances are they're going to own some forests. Were there any forests? Were there any old Citadel forests? Were there any forests from the old edition of Kill Team? You know, it's a really common thing for people to have trees, and having an idea of how to run trees in games of Kill Team, if that's the terrain you find yourself with, is, I think, really positive. And for me, this dense trait is my favourite part of the whole article, simply because now, because I've been in this position, if you rock up to a gaming store, you haven't got your own terrain with you, you fancy knocking around a few games of Kill Team, you've got an off-the-shelf way to run that terrain. Have to play test it to see how it actually feels. It's quite novel that your cover line would have to cross more than one piece of terrain with that trait to generate obscured, so if I only crossed through it once, it wouldn't be obscuring, which is pretty cool. I really want to see that in action, but I think that's probably the standout element of this article, if only because I've seen people trying to play on these kinds of boards, and what do we do? We call it all light. That feels weird. It's obviously not heavy. That feels weird. How are we going to rule it? This is pretty cool. I like this rule a lot. Here's what I dislike. Inspiring. While an objective is within black of this part of the terrain feature, roll 1d6 each time it would lose a wound. On a 5 up, the wound is not lost. Suitable for terrain features or parts that are necessary that would have significant psychological effect on operatives. Examples include a statue, banner, ancient relic. It's fine for both kill teams to be inspired. Perhaps the enemy is motivated to destroy it. So everybody's death guard now. I don't like this rule for the very specific reason that I don't know how it works with literally death guard. So if I'm playing Death Guard, do I get to make Disgustingly Resilience on top of my Disgustingly Resilience? So like I roll a fistful of dice and the wounds that go through, and then I roll them again? That seems ridiculous. Or does it do nothing for Death Guard because they already get the ability? Well, that seems ridiculous because that ability is what's making my team effective against bespoke teams. What it needed was a rule like the Volatile had, where if you already have this rule, it improves your Feel No Pain to a 4-up. I feel like a 4-up for Death Guard when they're near an inspiring terrain piece would make more sense than either potentially it doing nothing or it being too... I think rules as written, it's a 5-up on top of a 5-up, which is obviously ridiculous. So for that reason, and only that reason really, I think this trait is best sidestepped. Ironically, they use these exact terrain pieces at Warhammer World, these angels. They use them on all their Chalice boards. This is one of the first things that we've gone through so far in the article that I can see making an appearance at those Warhammer World organised play events. And so that's going to be a very interesting little question if they do decide to do that. If people bring Death Guard, as I did to the last... A lot of people brought Death Guard to the last Warhammer World Tournament. How did Death Guard interact with Inspiring? I know they don't really do FAQs for White Dwarf articles, but I think if this is going to be adopted by Warhammer World, and therefore by the section of the community that I kind of think of myself in, where we take our lead from what Warhammer World are doing, I think this is something where you're going to need a bit of clarification. Right, fortified. Each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly operative that's in cover as a result of this part of the terrain feature, in the roll defense dice step of the shooting attack, you can re-roll one of your defense dice. For defense lines and bunkers, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So you have a rule set. I hate this terrain set, by the way, because these blue things look so Lego to me, but... yeah, if you're using your Tau Shield walls, you've got a rule that you can use for those now. That seems pretty strong, pretty powerful. That's cool. If someone wants to put together a whole Tau board, yeah, I'll certainly play on it, you know. Protection. Each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly operative that is protected by this part of the terrain feature in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, it has a 4-up invulnerable save. This trait is suitable for creating areas that offer advanced and ice terrain protection. The area must be clearly defined before the battle. This could be part of a terrain feature the operative can be placed on, such as a skull altar. It could be part of a terrain feature that must be within a certain distance, i.e. blue, I can't read, of a shield generator. So the idea that if you're on the skull altar, you get a 4-up invulnerable save. Everybody gets a 4-up invulnerable save if they're fighting on the skull altar. You have a little close combat on the skull altar. Yeah, sure, why not? I'd be a little bit more wary about if you had I don't know, you can't still about anymore. I think it was a resin terrain piece, the old void shield generator. If you want to have an aura, that's quite a big terrain piece as well. If you want to have an aura of blue around that gives a 4-up invulnerable save, why not? It's cool. It is cool. Right, we got the smoke haze rule. This is from Killzone Nachman. It's just been, just like the vantage point rule, it's been pulled out. It's just been pulled out and put here, so you can apply it to more things. That's cool. Noxious. Is this also the same rule from Killzone Nachman? Right, because you had the two things in Nachman. You had the little smoke vents and the chimneys that were negative. I think this is that same rule from Nachman, and they're just saying, basically, it should also apply to, like, these Nurgly things. Which is cool. It's almost a Nurgle table, and they've got, like, yeah, that's Noxious, that's cool. And again, here we just have the scalable rule, which this is really why I think this article's been written, is to get these traits out of those little specific books, and so they can put them in an annual or a V2 rulebook. There's blatantly going to be like a White Dwarf Presents Kill Team annual with all this stuff reprinted in it. And so here's the scalable trait with the idea that you'd give it to this ladder. That's cool. Inventory is the second of the ones that I dislike. Right? So inventory. An operative can perform this action while it controls part of a terrain feature. So you do have to control it using that core rule of having more APL within an inch of it. For one action point, you can search it, you roll a d3 and add 1, and then you can equip the operative with an item of equipment where the equipment point total is equal to or less than the total. It must be an item of equipment for your faction's equipment list that they can be equipped with. It can't be an item they're already equipped with, or an item that can only be selected once you've already selected. An item that can only be selected once that you've already selected for the battle. You can't perform the action. It can't be equipped with the equipment or for any other operative has performed the action at the trade feature or the turning point. So you can't use it to get more grenades, can you? Because it says, like everyone online's been saying, oh yeah, use this to mine crack grenades. But it says right here, or an item that can only be selected once that you've already selected for the battle. Well, you can only select anything with indirect, can only be selected once. It's fine if you want to put one in the middle for a bit of fun. You know, I just don't think it will see tournament play. Suitable for collections of supplies stockpiled in certain areas. For things like Minotaur and containers, or to specify the part that has the trait. So it's clear that operatives must perform the action, e.g. at the door. Yeah, that... Okay, actually, I've warmed up on this. If we're not applying it to the whole container, we're just applying it to the door, or the little tiny piles of crates. And bearing in mind, it can't be used to break any rules. It can't be used to get you extra grenades or extra things you only have one of. As long as you're sane and sensible, and you put them in the middle of the table, as opposed to putting them in both the deployment zones, you know. And it does cost you the AP. Oh, why not? I'll stop. I'm less upset about this than I am about the one that hands out the 5-up field no pains. Okay, that's fine. A lot of people have gotten aggy about this one because they think you can spam grenades, but as far as it says right there that you can't. You can only select you can't select an item that can only be selected once that you've already selected for that battle, which is what indirect grenades are now, right? Yeah, makes sense to me. Right. More. There's more. Dangerous. So, hang on. If an operative is activated within 1 inch, or moves within 1 inch of this part of the terrain feature, roll 1d6. On 1 to 2, nothing happens. On 3 to 4, it suffers a mortal wound. On 5 to 6, suffers 3 mortal wounds. Suitable for areas of the kill zone, hazardous to operatives, such as overheated plasma coils. If it has a clearly defined area, the operative is placed upon, e.g. a toxic pool. You could change the within 1 inch part to with its base touching. Did we need this and the rule for explosive barrels? I don't know. It does the same thing. It creates a bit of terrain that actually denies an area, which is pretty cool. Applying it to toxic pools, I actually quite like that idea. So this is a toxic pool. If you go in it, you might take damage, but maybe it will be the shortest way across a thing, and toxic pools have no cover, so it'll be a fire lane, and then if you charge over it... interesting. That's interesting. Gun emplacement. Each time a friendly operative within this part of the terrain feature makes a shooting attack, including Overwatch, if it has not and will not move during the current activation, in the roll attack dice step of your shooting attack, you can reroll one of your attack dice. This is really cool. I'd only use it if I was using this Wall of Martyrs terrain, because it really does create a powerful thing. And so it's for that special piece of terrain, I think. The area must be clearly defined upon a battle, a part of a terrain feature, an operative can be placed upon a firing position within a trench line. Part of a terrain feature must be in 1 inch of on the right side of, such as a braced rampart weapon. Yeah. Again, powerful. But I think it's clearly there to try and make that Wall of Martyrs kit. Basically, if they'd done a box with the Wall of Martyrs in, this would have been a rule in the box. I feel strongly that a lot of this article's doing 2 jobs. It's pulling out a lot of the traits that already exist and putting them in the more, not the public domain, because you're still going to buy the magazine, but they're not locked behind the 100-odd quid battle box anymore, right? But it's also putting in traits for kits that we can now surmise they're never gonna do. They're never going to do a box with the Wall of Martyrs in, because they've given us the rules for that, right? Defendable is just the defendable trait from Morok, okay, with the picture of the Morok wall showing us what defendable does. And ingress/door. Now, this is just the door trait, but they've changed it slightly, because they also call it ingress and talk about applying it to windows as well. This trait is suitable for parts of terrain features that physically block an operative movement, but they should still be able to move through them. Doors and small windows. Such parts do not always need this trait. Doors and windows can be barricaded and locked after all. Windows would still need an operative to climb or traverse to get to the other side. The trait simply allows the operatives to ignore things like the window pane and the walls that are too small either side of the window if the operative's too large. So, I'm a great proponent in unlocking all the doors, and your doors should be doors, and I don't have the energy to repeat that whole rant. If you've not seen my something and a small rant about doors video, go and watch it. It seems to be the only thing people talk about in my Discord now, is that I'm the doors guy, but hopefully by putting this article, we'll at least get away from the idea where people go, Games Workshop only intended doors to exist in the Chalnath terrain. It's a Warzone Chalnath rule. It doesn't exist outside Warzone Chalnath. Well, now it does exist outside Warzone Chalnath, but they have said you don't have to use it. So it's one of those things where you discuss with your opponent before the game. What I don't want to see, guys, is the game where you turn up, you don't talk about it, one person assumes the doors are open, one person assumes the doors are locked, you get to the middle of turning point 2, and someone tries to move through a door, and it causes a big argy-bargy. Nobody wants an argy-bargy when they're trying to play Plastic Soldiers and have a nice time. So have the conversation with your opponent and say, hey, look, there's doors modelled onto this terrain. Are they locked or are they unlocked? Let's discuss that before the start of the game. Everybody gets that thing where they want to get to rolling dice really quickly. How many times have I played a game and been like, right, let's go. And then I went like, oh, hang on, did you want to do a strategic ploys? I've done that, because you get excited. He's going to go over there, he's going to do that, and then he's going to do that to buff him, and then this guy's going to be able to go over there and shoot him with the plasma gun, and I'll kill a character turn 1, let's go. And then you skip out on the important discussions about what the terrain actually does, which, if you don't have them before you start moving, are going to impact your deployment as well. If you deploy believing that a door is a door, and then as you try to use it in your first turning point, your opponent's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's not a door. It's going to cause a problem. So always have the conversation. We can get rid of the silly nonsense that doors have to somehow always be on in Chalnath and always off everywhere else. It's not this preordained thing, right? It's a discussion. It's optional, but it's a discussion. It's a decision that you need to make with your opponent and play by mutual consent, which I think is a lot more sensible than trying to imply that it's some kind of hard and fast rule from on high, you know? There we go, there's the mini doors rant follow-up. Strategic. In the generate command point step of the strategy phase, if friendly operatives control this part of the terrain, you gain 1 additional command point, suitable for terrain with great strategic potential, a unique artifact, structure, or key terminal or interaction point. I would be really wary about giving that to something as big as this Necron, whatever it was called. I mean, you'd have to plonk it. Like, I wouldn't put it in the middle of the table because that puts too many things on, you know, things have central control. It's usually an objective in the middle of the table. If you're going to use it, I'd put it in the centre of the table, like equidistant from drop zones, but maybe offset to the left or the right to provide a bit of interest. And it was something that I would want to use occasionally. I wouldn't regularly want CP generating terrain because it's going to massively skew. That isn't a bad thing, but this, like the one where you get equipment points, are, I think, usable, but have the potential to skew the game. I think that the 5 up invulnerable save 1, it just needs a clarification with Death Guard. Otherwise, I don't think, certainly at an event where you don't know in advance what units people are using, you should not use the 5 up invulnerable save 1 until we have an answer to the Death Guard question, right? Okay, and then we can move on to customized kill zones. So here's where they go through and they give us, effectively, if they put Wall of Martyrs in a box, these are the rules that they would give Wall of Martyrs, is what they're saying, okay? So the Wall of Martyrs is going to have this, going to have the trench line. The trench floor is insignificant. All the other parts have fortified, heavy, and traversable, okay? The gun line emplacement, which is a separate piece, has the gun line emplacement feature, so the fortified gun emplacement, heavy and traversable. You must be in the trench and within 1 of a firing enclosure to use that, but there's 3 firing enclosures. And you've got the bunker. The ramparts on the vantage point are fortified, heavy and traversable. All of the parts of the bunker have the heavy trait. And they've added in the supply dump terrain feature, which are these little boxes and things which have light, infantry and traversable. Personally, I've always hated the Wall of Martyrs, so I'm not going to rush out and buy Wall of Martyrs to make this kill zone, but you have, in fact, here got an entire new kill zone with, I think, as much detail as any of the box kill zones. Like, this is what you do with Wall of Martyrs. So if you want that, it's there, right? And then the other one they've decided to give us, and I'm not really sure why, is a reactor compound. But this is just the terrain that we've already had from Kill Team Neckman, largely. In terms of the industrial structure, a terrain point with a vantage point trait, the ramparts are light and traversable, the ladders have scalable and they don't provide any cover, and the industrial machine has heavy and scalable. That's how I've always run that piece of terrain, there's no problem there. The chimney's heavy and creates a smoke haze. Well, they've muddied the water here because in Neckman, these didn't shoot smoke, these shooted the hazardous one, and it was the little, like, jet engine ventilator things that shot smoke. So now you're going to have to discuss that with your opponent, because if you've only read White Dwarf, you might assume that the chimneys are going to shoot beneficial cover-providing smoke, whereas if your opponent's only seen Neckman, they might assume that they're going to shoot the kind of the negative smog. So, worth a conversation. We've got the thermic plasma conduit, so this is new. So if you use this, you know, it has light and traversable, but the exposed plasma coils are dangerous. But they've not the powered down damaged one. They haven't got the dangerous one. So the bits that are painted blue, they've given that dangerous rule as well. I think that's fine. And the helium hemotrope reactor, has the heavy and volatile trait. And the volatile trait has a distance of white. So that's going to hurt if you're sheltering behind that. That's pretty cool, though. I have one of those somewhere. If you want to stick it on a board and play with it in a game, I think that's cool. I could see that showing up at Warhammer World as well. Why not? I don't think there's a massive problem with it. Yeah, all in all, I think that they're good rules. So let's move on to the final thoughts. So ultimately, how much any of this matters is down to tournament organisers. If the tournament organisers decide to ignore all these traits and just carry on as they were doing before, then people won't use them at home and they'll lose traction and they won't get talked about by content creators. And then, yeah, people who are playing in their isolation little bubbles, playing Kill Team with their friends on a kitchen table that don't care about the online community and don't care about events and don't care about anything, might end up using it or not or whatever. But for those of us who are likely to be watching a video such as this, how much it really matters is going to be down to whether or not Warhammer World intend to use it, or your local tournament scene, wherever that may be, decides to use these traits. I do think that some of them have genuine value, like the Forest one, and like the one for the Wall of Martyrs, in the, if you rock up to the game store, and that's the terrain that you're playing on, because you've not got your ideal terrain set with you, then you've got some rules to get going and decide how that stuff should work. And you can play it and you can see how it's going to go. However, they have muddied the water for certain things. So a lot of people, I was never one of them, a lot of people were labouring under the assumption that, right, Octarius is like a set thing, it has these sets of traits in it, and Chalnath was like a set thing that has these sets of traits in it, Morok is a set thing, it has these sets of traits in it. Well, they've blown that theory out of the water, haven't they? They've pulled all these traits just into this general melting pot of traits that you're free to pick and choose from. So that conversation, that clarity where you're picking and choosing your traits in the pre-game chat with your opponent is going to be key. Obviously, if you're at an event, you'd hope that your TO's got you a nice little placemat that says these are the traits that we've got to use. Some of them might be from White Dwarf, some of them might be from the different books, some of them might be from the tournament organiser's own head, you know, you never know. It's possible. Let's talk about some meta things now, okay? Kill Team is the most supported secondary Games Workshop game. I mean, okay, possibly it's not if you count Horus Heresy, but Horus Heresy is still in its launch hype window, okay? But we're getting so much Kill Team stuff compared to Blood Bowl, Necromunda, Aeronautica, Warcry, Adeptus Titanicus, all these other games that they make that you hear about occasionally. Kill Team is much more constant as a thread going all the way through, okay? And I expect we're going to get at least one more full year. I expect we're going to now see 4 White Dwarf teams next year. I think that was always the number they were going to do, 1 per quarter. People got confused and started talking about, oh, we've missed this quarter, we've missed that quarter, because they shuffled articles around and brought 2 out in 1 quarter and things. But I think that the plan is to get 4 a year, however they are distributed throughout the year. I expect the plan is to get 4 a year. I also expect that all the box releases, and hopefully we'll find out more information on this tomorrow, all the box releases will be corridor-based going forwards. And this feels like this is all the design work they did for boxes on the old paradigm, that they've gone, oh, we're never going to use this Wall of Martyrs stuff now. Marketing says that no one wants to buy a Wall of Martyrs box. We've done the rules, let's put them in White Dwarf. Yeah, it feels like they're kind of drawing a line under that paradigm of purposing 40k terrain for Kill Team and wanting you to know how it works. So they've done that, they've drawn a line under it, and now it's done. And now we're going to move on to some kind of corridor combat thing going forwards. I know some people hate the idea of corridors and some people love them. Just remember to be positive and be upbeat, and you're getting new teams, and no one's taking away the year one Kill Team paradigm from you. No one's taking that away. But I have to ask you, genuinely, how many more terrain sets do you have room for in your house? You know, we've got enough. We've got the 4 sets, plus now some general rules to apply to other things that you might wish to buy from gamesworkshop.com. So you've got those. I do say, by the way, if anyone has been inspired by this video and they're off to buy Wall of Martyrs, go and have a look on Element Games, see if they've got one in stock. I'd check for you, but I haven't thought of it. But if it is there, go and buy one from there and I'll get a little bit of money back. That would really help me out. Sorry about the e-begging, but it is what it is. If you've enjoyed the channel, please do like and subscribe and all of those things. I am very aware that this video has not been up to my usual high standards. I nearly didn't make it. And then I was like, well, it's new Kill Team news. I said I was going to make a review of this White Dwarf. I even had a comment with someone saying, I'm looking forward to this review. I have COVID-19. I've had COVID-19 before. I had it really badly. This was over a year ago. I had it really badly. I was in hospital, in intensive care and everything else. Since then, I've had me 3 vaccinations. So having picked it up again, it seems to be a lot less, made me a lot less ill than it made me last time. but I am still feeling significantly under the weather, so I do apologise for the poor production value of the video. I do apologise because I sound even more nasally than usual because my nose is like solid, okay, without going into too much detail. And the video is off. The video will return when I feel photogenic again, okay? Nobody wants to see me in my 3-day-old pyjamas. Yeah, nobody wants to see that. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And hope you look forward to the Kill Team streaming preview event Games Workshop thingy tomorrow. Bye-bye, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend.